Hi, gorgeous Virgos. This is your November astrology for all Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus Virgo signs. Now, I will start off by saying Spirit is definitely telling me there's some sacral chakra energy going on, some strengthening or healing or clearing out of blocked energy of the sacral chakra. And this is also your Mars energy. This is what I call our inner warrior and our inner SWAT team. They give it to me first off, just flat out as Mars energy, but I still call it our inner SWAT team and our inner belly dancer. I just connect Mars with the sacral chakra. And this is asking you about your passion, your action, your aggression, your inner fire, your inner power, your inner SWAT team, your inner warrior. But at the same time, it's confidence. It's your inner belly dancer and how you feel about yourself. Do you feel good enough about yourself to be confident? Okay, you're going to be coming into new energies about this throughout this month. They are saying that there is karmic lessons that are taking place. Some situations are taking place with siblings, but in some cases, the siblings could be, my dear friend Hill Hippie just recently passed away, and I always called him my brother. And he's not really my brother, but he's close to me like my brother. And that's why I'm bringing this up, is because sometimes our siblings are our siblings, but sometimes our siblings are those family members that we've created to be part of our family. And in some ways that could connect you back to groups, memberships, communities, larger groups of friendships, more important or powerful groups of friendships to you. And it is very important for you to pay attention to the details that you speak this month, as well as karmic lessons that will be learned by learning how to enjoy you and being the you that brings that enjoyment to you, but learning how to speak it properly. Learning that there is duty within it, responsibilities to yourself within it, and creating that as you are moving forward. Is there anything else? All right. I'm going to start off simply by telling you the planets that are moving, and then we'll connect them all to the house. But I'm going to throw out the planets that are moving so you already are aware. You can go back and check all of that out throughout the month. Now, obviously, we have Mercury going retrograde for most of the month of November. It went retrograde on Halloween Day, October 31st, in Scorpio. That's powerful information, okay? And I believe for you, that's your second house, is it? Is it? Is it? It's your third house. Your communication zone. Duh. Which makes a lot of sense. Mercury retrograde, communication zone. This is telling you to pay attention to your self-centeredness and to pay attention to your word vomit. Make sure that the details and the communication that you are throwing out there is exactly what you want to be word vomiting. Make sure that the details are correct, because otherwise it might come back and bite you in the butt. It is going to be in retrograde up until the 20th. But remember, you also have a new moon coming up at the end of the month, and Mercury will still be there. But let me get back into where we were. On the 1st and the 8th, you have Venus and Pallas, which are moving into Sagittarius. Venus moves in on the 1st, Venus moves in on the 1st to Sagittarius. Pallas moves in on the 8th to Sagittarius. And that will be your 4th house, but it's moving in with Jupiter and Ceres. We'll go over that in just a moment. Libra, I think Libra is your 2nd house. I can't keep up. Yeah, Libra is your 2nd house. And Ura is moving in with Haumea and Make. So I'll explain that in just a moment, because that's going to be very powerful information for you. You have the full moon on the 12th. The full moon is going to take place in Taurus with Uranus in retrograde, as well as Vesta is there. Still very powerful information. On the 12th, not the 12th, the 16th or the 17th, and I say 16th or the 17th because I did not mark it down to the exact moment, but Ceres is moving in to Capricorn. And this is going to change Capricorn's energy right up until Saturn moves out. Let me just tell you, I think it's until Saturn moves out, because I think they're there at least as long as Sirius is in there with Saturn and Pluto. Sirius is going to change that energy of what's going on in Capricorn. Plain and simple. But we'll get into that in a minute. On the 19th, Mars moves into Scorpio. The 20th, Mercury goes direct. The 22nd, the Sun moves into Sagittarius. The 25th, Venus moves into Capricorn. On the 26th, we have the new moon, the second new moon in Scorpio. So it's definitely brought a whole resurrection forward by this time. Or at least a reincarnation of some form. And then on the 27th, you have Neptune, which is finally going direct. And that is going to be very powerful all month, because Neptune is definitely got some secrets she's unloading and going to be smacking you upside the head going, did you miss the memo? Because she only has until the 27th when she comes out of retrograde, or he, however you want to put it, Neptune, to go, did you get the message? Because now we're going direct and I needed you to get the message. All right. And it's sitting on top of Ceres, bringing us right back to the feminine and the masculine sacral chakra. All right. Now, when I look at the very first house for Virgos, you don't have a whole lot going on. And that's good and bad, but trust me, you got more than enough going on in the second house to take care of that first house. You have nothing going on in your self-worth, your self-value, not self-worth, and your self-awareness, your physical body, your personality, your appearance. There's not any houses here influencing it. You're pretty much in your normal Virgo personality. However, the second house is where the things are changing that personality. Because it has, your second house is Libra. Libra happens to be all about the scales of justice. Well, the scales of justice for you in the second house is all about your self-worth, your self-value, and your self-esteem. And where you are or are not standing in the power of your self-worth, self-value, and self-esteem. You have Haumea here, which is your collective consciousness. You have Make here. And I always put Make as it's the level of the lotus flower. Kind of like the level of the lotus flower's growth. And the reason I do this is because the lotus flower, it grows from the swamp. It grows in a very nasty place. But it's one of the most spiritually evolved spiritual flowers of coming into your soulfulness. How we explain it. It starts by you're in your swamp, you're in your mud, I can't see the light from the hell of the swamp that I'm in. And then it starts to finally grow and mature and strengthen, that soulfulness does. And it comes out of the swamp and it lifts to right where the swamp comes into that frothy middle land where it's water, air, or air, water, above and so below. But you're not really on either because you haven't really collected that. So it's where you can see the light and you can see the darkness, but you can't really, you're kind of in both. And then it continues to grow and it strengthens itself in the blooming and strengthens itself into stretching towards the light. This is how we explain in astrology the lotus flower's growth. Well, it happens to be in your second house with your collective consciousness asking you where you are on this level of the lotus flower for your very self-worth, your self-value, and your self-esteem. This also speaks to you of anxiety and depression, overwhelming energies, and where that stands in the way of you finding the power of your self-worth, self-value, self-esteem. And on top of that, you have Ura moving in. You have Ura moving in here on the 4th. Ura is sacrifice and commitment. So the question here is, where is the sacrifice and commitment to yourself, to your self-value, your self-worth, your self-esteem? And how does that affect your very appearance of life? How does that affect your self-awareness, your personality, your body, your image? How is this affecting the very core of who and what you are And where are you sacrificing or not sacrificing and having the commitment to commit to yourself and the growth of that? This is the energy that's going on in the second house, but it's going all the way back to that first house. And it's strengthening the core of who and what you are, making you learn that you have to care about you. And Libras are very bad for wanting to give balance where balance shouldn't be. And I know you're not a Libra. This is a Virgo reading. But your self-worth, self-value, self-esteem is in Libra. And I give Libras a hard time because they do care so much. They do love so much. They want so much for there to be justice. They want so much for there to be harmony and balance that they'll create it in places where it doesn't belong. And if it's your self-worth, your self-value, and self-esteem, this automatically says, stop giving it away. It's yours, and it's yours to claim. And this is why I'm saying it this way. Because you have sacrificing commitment, Ura. You have the lotus flower and collective consciousness going, where have you not been committed to you? And if you're getting right with yourself, this has nothing to do with being self-centered. This has nothing to do with being narcissistic. This has to do with self-love. But when we move into the third house, this is where the communication comes in. And this is where the lesson of communicating this in healthy ways begins. Okay, so you have Scorpio. You just had a new moon in Scorpio, in Scorpio, which is your third house. The third house is the communication house, okay? And how you properly communicate through intellect and details. What is important to make sure are brought to light for the details to be heard properly. But it is also our siblings, like I was talking about in the beginning. Sometimes our siblings are those that are incredibly close to us, but not necessarily even siblings. They're the ones that we feel are siblings. So that's where it takes a little bit of a twist and fate there. As to the siblings, the intellect, the detail, the communication, the phone calls, the gossip, the text messages, details. You just had a new moon at the end of October, and we're coming all the way full cycle into a second new moon. So this is a resurrection of learning how to communicate properly. But you have Mercury in retrograde, which is going to make you only communicate with yourself about what it is you truly need to get right with within the self-worth, self-value, and self-esteem area. But making sure that you find a way of doing it in a mature, soulful adult way instead of word vomit, because it is Mercury retrograde. This is self-love. And self-love doesn't have to come out in such aggressive, bad, negative ways. It's speaking to you of understanding how to still give yourself love, but stand firm in these energies. Because Mercury in Scorpio is all about resurrection, but it's also about birth, death, and rebirth. And a lot of what's going on with these two new moons is a reincarnation, a regeneration, a rebirth. So you're rebirthing that self-worth, self-value, and self-esteem, but you're rebirthing it in how you communicate to yourself and outwardly. Throughout this month is a big lesson that you were learning. Plus the sun is there. So whether you mean to or not, you are very illuminated in the stuff you speak. Even if it's through text messages and emails, you're very illuminated. So this is why it's important to pay attention to the details, because you are so illuminated up until the 22nd when the sun moves into Sagittarius in this communication zone for you. What you are putting out is definitely going to be heard. Make sure what you are putting out is what you want to be heard, is what I'm trying to get through to you. Now, Mars will be moving in to Scorpio on the 19th, so mid-month. That communication is going to actually start to really take action. right when Mercury comes out of retrograde. So these things you've been intercommunicating to yourself, you may want to hold off on a little bit. I'm not saying hold off like in doubt and self-doubt of yourself, but hold off and make sure that you are evaluating exactly how you're going to bring that out. Because the inner warrior, the inner passion, the inner aggression is going to force it out. So make sure that you're redirecting that self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, self-awareness, personality, appearance, view of life, identification. Make sure that you're doing it with sacrifice and commitment to self in healthy ways. But Mars is going to bring that into a brand new action as soon as Mercury goes direct. And remember, it's going to be in shadow. So again, this is going to be saying, make sure you're paying very good attention to the details, because you will still be illuminated, even though the sun moves out on the 22nd and Mars moves in on the 20th, the 19th. That action is still going to go forward. Now, as you move into the 4th house, the 4th house for you happens to be Sagittarius. This is where the higher self has been for you right now, which is in your inner emotional security, the very roots of who and what you are, the child that created the adult to become who the adult is. It is the home of who and what we are. It is the home that we live in on a material level, and the people that are in the home, the places and the things that are in the home that the home deals with. But on a deeper level, this is the home that can never be taken away. And the only way you lose self-value, self-esteem, self-esteem, self-worth is if you accidentally misunderstood what it was and you gave it away. And this is where that inner emotional security speaks to you about reclaiming it. Coming right with the true self, the roots of the self, and healing roots of self that created the inner child to become the adult that it is, if there is problems in the inner emotional security, and most of us have them. So this is karmic lessons that bring healing for that reincarnation. Now you have Jupiter here, which is bringing you abundance and knowledge into what works for you and what doesn't, where it's been good to you and where it hasn't, what you've allowed to develop in that inner emotional security and the soul in the home and what you think you are. You've also had Ceres here all year, which is speaking to the karmic lessons, the threefold theory of getting right with self. Where have you been neglecting that inner emotional security, and where have you been nurturing it? All right, that is what's been going on all year. But now you have Pallas moving in here and Venus. This is going to bring any extra sensitivity that you have to where you have lacked in that inner emotional security, where you have lacked giving yourself that self-roots, self-truth that gives that self-worth, self-value, and self-esteem a leg to stand on. Where have you been neglecting that inner emotional security? Because Venus coming in, speaking to Ceres, is going to touch on the neglect and the nurturing. And the nurturing is going to be the ones that are going to be the red triggers. The neglecting is going to be the ones that are the red triggers. The nurturing is just going to remind you how to make yourself feel good and healthy, and to continue to do that and find more of that. The neglect is going to be telling you where you need to walk away from that, why it doesn't work, why it's working against that self-worth, self-value, and self-esteem. But Pallas is going to give you the ability to strategically think how to go about doing so, which takes you right back to Mercury and this energy of your 3rd house of communication. So how do you communicate with yourself so that you know what you need, and then find a way to communicate it outwardly? But you're going to be discovering how to communicate first with yourself, 2nd half of the month, of how to communicate outwardly. Now, you also have the new moon coming in Scorpio at the end of the month on the 26th, first of 2 new moons. So like I said, this whole month is like a reincarnation of finding that self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, that inner emotional security. But that 5th house is what's going to help you get it right. That is That is where you're having major changes taking place, because you have Ceres as of the 19th, the second half of the second half of the month. Like I said, communication is going to be very important for you to understand what you want to communicate the second half of the month, second half of the mouth. I know how spirit works. Okay, so there's something for you definitely to learn in the first half of the month in that fifth house that will help you as you really start walking through it the second half of the month. Because Ceres, the threefold theory, karmic energy, neglect or nurturing energy, is moving into the fifth house. And it's going to be definitely speaking about what you have been nurturing and what you haven't been nurturing, neglecting or nurturing, and how that's going to bring that manifestation forward for your inner child to be able to get out and explore life and enjoy life. This is where you find enjoyment in being you. This is where you get back to the roots of enjoying you, which brings that inner emotional security threefold into the front line, which brings the self-worth, self-value, and self-esteem forward. This is where our pursuit of pleasure takes place. What gets in the way of you being able to enjoy yourself and enjoy your life? Because if you're not having time for the things you enjoy, then you're not going to be able to enjoy life. This is getting right with what you enjoy and your creative expression of how to do so. But a lot of times this comes from allowing our inner child to play a little, for our little girl or boy to still be able to get out and explore. For that child mischief that's not so bad but fun. Where are you missing fun? Where are you neglecting it, and where are you nurturing it? As well as where rules, walls, and boundaries need to be set up because you are neglecting certain pieces. And how are you going to nurture it? By changing those rules, walls, and boundaries, and allowing that inner girl or boy to come back to the surface and relight that flame within inside of you. This is what you'll be noticing about the first 5 houses of this month, and how to rebirth and reincarnate yourself. It all will come down to that 5th and 6th house of how to do so from inwardly, so that you can then flip it over to outwardly. Now, and the 6th house happens to be Aquarius. There's nothing here going for you or against you, which is a wonderful thing. This just reminds you the people, the places, and the things that are in your life and your everyday daily tasks, your mundane daily tasks that you don't think are that big of a deal, but they really are. That is energy that you are, inhaling, that you are sucking up. Are the people, places, and things that are in these daily tasks healthy for you? Are they bringing you good energy or not? Are they draining you of your energy? Because you might want to reevaluate those routines and those people, places, and things of your daily life. From the moment you get up, the shower, the lunch you have with so-and-so, the dinner you have with so-and-so. These little things that you do on a daily basis that don't seem like they add up to a lot. They just keep going. Are they healthy? People, places, and things. And are the energies that they're bringing to your life supporting you being able to enjoy your life? Which brings you right back to your inner emotional security, self-worth, self-value, self-esteem. Now, in the 7th house happens to be, for you, your relationship zone, and this is Pisces. This is the marriage, the partnerships, the relationship house. It is business contracts as well. It is anything you care about, you have a relationship with. From your friends, your children, your parents, your business contracts, your working environment, your open enemies, and even money. When you have no money, you know about your relationship with no money, okay? So anything you care about, you have a relationship with. This is where Neptune is going direct at the end of the month on the 27th. So this is where the whammy is going to come in. Because Neptune is also kind of, I don't know how else to put it. Halley's Comet is kind of coming near Neptune's orbit and is bringing out some darker aspects. They're not actually in communication. We're not going to see Halley's Comet until like 2040 something. So we're not seeing it. But the orbits are coming like just passing each other. And they're forcing some negativities to come forward. And the negativities are being forced to come forward so that we have to make healing changes within our life so that we can evolve and change. And this is going to take place in the relationship zone. Okay? Neptune is going direct in your relationship zone on top of Lilith. Lilith speaks to us about our inner feminine, like our inner feminine sexual demon in our own way. I mean, she is definitely teaches us how to stand in our femininity, stand in our power, to be happy about who and what you are. She is a connection of that inner belly dancer, but she also is a connection of that inner warrior. So she's the feminine energy of that sacral chakra going, why don't you believe in me? Why don't you believe in me? Why is this relationship so important when you know you can believe in me? And that's not exactly a bad thing. Neptune is about creating magic, but it is also nostalgia and delusion. Where is nostalgia part of the past? And where are you holding on to the past? It's illusion and delusion. The combination of the confusion between the difference. It's also where fantasy smacks you in the face with harsh reality. Where are you believing something that's just not true? Where are you holding on to something that's just not true? This is coming in the relationship zone, asking your sacral chakra, where do you believe in you? How do you feel about you? Do you feel confident about you within this relationship? And this is the conversations that it's going to be asking you all month. And with it coming in retrograde, coming out of retrograde and about to go direct, it's going to be showing you areas where you haven't been confident in you, where you haven't been standing up for you in these relationships, and is bringing it to your attention so that you can start to create them in a more balanced way as you move forward. But it will bring it to light, most likely around the full moon, but it may still be bringing it to light all the way up into that new moon. And Spirit is saying for some of you, it's just flat out in the social foundation, not relationships, but in the social foundation, you'll be seeing mirroring and images of this. The 8th house happens to be where Chiron is and Eris. This is the rules, the walls, the boundaries of these relationships, the joint finances, the joint resources, and the joint efforts. Where are they not joint? Where are they not balanced? Where are they not just? Chiron is definitely pointing out where you feel that you've done too much, or where somebody else is trying to say they've done too much and you're not doing enough. But it's also where you're holding on to trouble, toil, and strife, because Eris is here. That's who I call Medusa. So Chiron is trying to heal Medusa, our inner warrior, our inner trouble, toil, strife, our inner injustice within these relationships by creating balance. But that means you have to let go of sinking your teeth into what you want to be, what you want to hold on to, what you still resent. Because the resentment will keep you from finding balance within the relationship. This is about finding justice within joint finances, joint efforts, joint resources of the relationships. Finding a true balance that create justice. And Chiron and Medusa are going to be showing you where it's not even throughout the month. On the 9th house, which is your higher self, this is where your full moon takes place. Your full moon is taking place in Taurus, the 9th house. For you, this is, why can't we just have heaven here on earth? Why can't things be beautiful? Why can't they just be great? This is what I really want. I want my higher self to understand that things are able to be more than this. Why can't we get that? This is what I'm feeling I'm picking up for you. And in that level of your independence, your individuality, your uniqueness, and your freedom, you are still accidentally holding on to some of Medusa's trouble, toil, and strife, and resentment, and injustice. Because Uranus is in retrograde going towards Eris. So this is saying in that higher self, your ethics, your morals, your spiritual urges, your higher mind, your visions, your daily rituals of your